Within the assembly, you have the ability to add assembly features, and these can be found in the assembly features pull down. And this allows you to add any of these features directly in the assembly without having to edit the parts. One of the reasons this is useful is that you can add multiple holes without having to position each one on each individual part. So if you position the hole on this top face, you can choose to have that hole go through each of these components. So I'll go ahead and choose a size. And at the end I have a new option that's not available in the part interface, which says propagate features to part. If I leave this unchecked and I were to open up one of these parts, you'll notice that that feature isn't included with the part. And once again, if I edit the feature and choose that option, then those features will now show up within the part. You also have the option of selecting the feature scope. If, for example, we didn't want this going through the last plate, we could remove that out. Actually, that's the middle plate. So if I just chose those two, for example, it won't show up on that back plate. And now these holes will show up in the two parts that we've selected them for. And you'll notice that now it brings in this counter bore for a 1/4 inch binding head machine screw. You'll notice that you won't be able to edit the feature within the part. You'll only be able to change it within the assembly. Once you create a feature, you'll also have the option of adding feature patterns directly in the assembly as well. We also have an option at the top called Hole Series, and this is roughly the same as the Hole Wizard, except it gives you better settings for the clearances of the hole between the different parts. So once again, if I choose that 1/4 inch binding head screw, I now have options to change the size of the middle hole. So any parts in the middle are going to have a different clearance size. For example, I can change this to 5/16. And then I can choose my end condition, and in this case, if I wanted to have a clearance for 2 holes and then create a thread on the last hole, I can choose out an end component, and that'll end up being a thread. So now you can see in that gap we have a larger clearance, we have the threaded hole at the end, and we have that same counter bore on top. Within the assembly features, you can add, once again, the Hole Series, Hole Wizard holes, simple hole, which allow you to just select a size and quickly add a hole, and the extruded cut as well as revolved cuts. You can add your fillets directly within the assembly. For example, if I choose out multiple edges from these 3 different parts, we can add those fillets as well as propagate those to the part. And one of the advantages of that is that we can create all our fillets at the assembly level, and if we want to suppress them out for a little faster performance in a larger assembly, it's a little bit easier to do that than to have to go into each individual component and suppress those out. Lastly, you can also add a belt chain feature to an assembly, as well as a weld bead for any welded parts. So we selected out an edge and set our parameters, we can choose the length. We can also choose if we want this to be intermittent, and then you can click OK. And that'll bring in the weld symbol as well as a weld folder. But that's how you can go about adding assembly level features to your assembly components.